Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. Authorities in Harford County, Maryland say that a 38-year-old man was returned to jail just hours after being released last week when he allegedly stole a privately owned military vehicle and led police on a chase. The incident reportedly began at around 6:35 p.m. on May 12th, when the county sheriff's office received 911 calls about a vehicle theft in the town of Bel Air. Police were told that a man, later identified as 38-year-old Michael Stevens II, had stolen a military vehicle from an address on the 900 block of Rock Spring Road. The vehicle in question was a 1986 923A 5-ton military truck. According to reports, the truck's owner had spotted Stevens while he was out driving off with it and had jumped on in an attempt to deter him. However, the man was forced to bail when he realized that Stevens had no intention of stopping. Luckily, he was not injured. Authorities later spotted Stevens driving the military truck down Route 24, and a pursuit began, continuing when the 38-year-old made his way onto Interstate 95. Multiple attempts were made to disable the truck using stop sticks, however, these were unsuccessful. In the meantime, Stevens crashed into several other vehicles on the road, though reportedly never exceeded speeds of about 50 miles per hour. The chase finally came to an end in Baltimore when the suspect turned down a street and apparently realized it was too narrow to properly maneuver the large truck. At this point, he jumped out and tried to run on foot, though was quickly caught and placed under arrest. Police say that Stevens is now facing charges including motor vehicle theft, first-degree assault, second-degree assault, and failing to obey a lawful order. Following the incident, he was returned to the Harford County Detention Center, from which he had only been released hours earlier on another unrelated theft charge. Representatives from South Carolina's Anderson County Sheriff's Office say that a couple of accused drug traffickers seriously messed up last month when one of them tried to make a run for it during a traffic stop, only to accidentally reveal their illegal haul. According to reports, the whole thing took place on April 12th when the Sheriff's Office's Special Investigation Division and Directed Patrol units were conducting a, quote, proactive patrol along Interstate 85. As part of the operation, they pulled over a man and woman, later identified as Anthony Miller and Samika Mitchum. While speaking with the pair, police became suspicious when they asked Mitchum, who appeared visibly pregnant, about her due date. She and Miller had given officers completely different answers. Upon realizing that things weren't going well, Mitchum allegedly tried to make a run for it. When she did, it quickly became clear to police why her story hadn't added up. It turned out that Mitchum wasn't really pregnant at all. She was wearing a fake belly which was loaded with nearly 3.5 pounds of cocaine. Not only that, when she started running, the whole thing reportedly came loose, causing the drugs to fall out onto the ground. Needless to say, Mitchum and Miller were arrested at the scene, and both are now facing charges of trafficking over 400 grams of cocaine. Representatives from Texas's Midland Police Department released a heartbreaking update in the case of a missing 20-year-old woman this week, announcing that her remains had been found more than a week after she was last seen alive. According to reports, 20-year-old Madeline Pantoja was last seen on May 10th, the same night that witnesses heard the sounds of a loud argument coming from her apartment. The next day, she was reported missing when she failed to meet up with a friend. Repeated phone calls and text messages to her went unanswered, and when a welfare check was conducted at her home, she was nowhere to be found, despite the fact that her keys, phone, purse, and dog were still inside. Almost immediately, friends and family members of Madeline turned their attention towards her ex-boyfriend, 24-year-old Mario Chacon. According to them, Chacon was the only person other than Madeline that had a key to her apartment, and when the welfare check was conducted, the door was found locked. A search continued until May 20th, when sadly, Madeline's remains were found about 3 miles east of County Road 190 and County Road 1160. While the 20-year-old's cause of death has not been released at the time of this recording, pending an autopsy, Chacon was arrested that same day and charged with murder. The situation is still developing. Representatives from the Michigan State Police are commending a 13-year-old boy for his quick thinking and heroic actions this week after he recently thwarted an alleged kidnapper who was trying to abduct his younger sister. According to reports, the incident took place sometime on May 10th when the 8-year-old victim was in her own backyard in Alpena Township. She was looking around for mushrooms when out of nowhere, the 17-year-old suspect allegedly came up behind her, grabbed her while trying to put a hand around her mouth, and then started pulling her into the woods at the edge of the property. As this unfolded, the girl reportedly managed to scream, grabbing the attention of her 13-year-old brother Owen, who was inside the house playing video games. At first, Owen apparently thought his sister was just goofing around with friends, but when he heard a second scream, he felt uneasy and decided to double check. That's when, to his horror, he saw what was happening outside. While many people might have frozen at this terrifying sight, Owen reportedly jumped into action. After grabbing his slingshot, a marble, and a rock, he ran to his sister's aid, firing 2 shots. He struck the suspect in the head and the chest, allowing the 8-year-old to break free and escape. The 17-year-old was arrested later on, apparently bearing noticeable injuries from where he had been hit by the slingshot projectiles. He has since been charged with attempted kidnapping and other crimes. In an interview after the incident, Owen said that he simply got lucky. He said that he was really freaked out by the whole thing, but suggested it was fortunate that the target he was shooting at was a lot bigger than the Pepsi cans he usually practices on. Police, however, called Owen's actions extraordinary. They say that he may have saved his sister's life, and at the very least, likely prevented something seriously bad from happening to her. Authorities in Cincinnati, Ohio say that a 26-year-old woman is facing charges this week after raising quite the literal stink during an alleged crime in a local place of worship. According to reports, the incident took place sometime on May 13th when the suspect, later identified as 26-year-old Laura Miniard, went into the chapel inside of Cincinnati's Good Samaritan Hospital. While there, authorities say she defecated on the church's altar, after which she proceeded to smear her feces around on the table. As if this weren't gross enough, she allegedly used a fabric runner on the altar to wipe herself off when she was finished. Miniard was subsequently arrested and charged with desecrating a place of worship, and her bond was set at $2,500. Unfortunately, authorities say that they still have no idea what motivated the incident, which several are now jokingly calling a crime of opportunity. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week series, then you'll know that we've covered our fair share of absurd DUI stories. However, this next one might just be the most ridiculous we've heard yet. Representatives from Colorado's Springfield Police Department say that a man is facing a number of charges this week after he was pulled over for a traffic violation and tried to get out of the situation by blaming his dog. According to reports, the whole thing went down at approximately 11:30 p.m. on May 13th when police spotted a male driver speeding near 7th and Main Street. He was reportedly traveling 53 miles per hour in a 30 zone. When the man was pulled over, however, officers quickly witnessed something unbelievable. They apparently watched in disbelief as the man switched places with his dog, who up until that point had been riding in the front passenger seat. He then got out through the passenger side door and allegedly proceeded to tell police that his dog had been the one driving. Apparently realizing that this ludicrous excuse was not going to work, the man then reportedly tried to take off on foot, though he only made it about 20 yards before being caught and arrested. Police said that to their complete lack of surprise, the unidentified suspect showed signs of being intoxicated. The man was booked into the Baca County Jail, where he was subsequently charged with driving under the influence of alcohol and/or drugs, driving while ability impaired, driving under suspension, speeding 20 to 24 over the speed limit, and resisting arrest. In a Facebook post released by the Springfield Police Department after the incident, police joked that, quote, "The dog does not face any charges and was let go with just a warning." Commenters were also quick to get in on the action, with one person saying, quote, "He was too drunk to use a GPS, so he got a guide dog," and another chiming in, quote, "I wish my dog could drive." The animal is reportedly now in the care of one of the suspect's acquaintances. If you've been a viewer of the channel for a while, then you're probably aware that Luke and I have always been huge fans of the show Unsolved Mysteries. In fact, we've made quite a few videos about the show in the past, detailing cases that the program helped solve, as well as prominent theories about ongoing cases, especially ones covered in the most recent Netflix reboot of the series. That's why when we heard that the show had helped to solve yet another case just a few days ago, we knew that we had to include the story in this week's list. According to reports, Kayla Unbahan was reported missing in July of 2017 when she was allegedly kidnapped by her non-custodial mother, Heather. At the time, Kayla was 9 years old, and her father, Ryan, had full custody of her. Heather was granted supervised visitation rights every other weekend. The weekend leading up to the 4th of July holiday that year happened to be one of these weekends, but the actual holiday itself fell on the Tuesday. As a result, Ryan reportedly suggested that Heather spend some extra time with their daughter, saying that he would pick her up the day after. However, when Ryan showed up at Heather's residence, about a 30-minute drive from his home in South Elgin, Illinois, she and Kayla were nowhere to be found. Apparently, family members of Heather's initially claimed that the mother and daughter had simply gone on an extended camping trip. However, it soon became clear that this was not the case. Heather had allegedly abducted Kayla and gone on the run. For nearly 6 years, nothing was heard from them, with Ryan left to search in hope that he would one day be reunited with his daughter. That day finally arrived last weekend when a store clerk in Asheville, North Carolina, apparently recognized Kayla Unbahan. She had seen her photo featured in a lineup at the end of an Unsolved Mysteries episode. For those wondering, the episode was in the most recent season and focused on cases of parental abduction. After realizing who Kayla was, the store clerk called police, who were able to arrive in time and place Heather under arrest. The 40-year-old is now facing a felony charge of child abduction, while Kayla, who is now 15, has been reunited with her father. Police say that the case is unusual because of how long Heather Unbahan was able to remain undetected. In an interview, an investigator involved in the case said that typically suspects leave behind a digital trail that can be tracked. However, that didn't happen here. Kayla's father, Ryan, meanwhile, expressed his gratitude to law enforcement as well as the many people and organizations who helped to keep the multi-year search for his daughter alive. In a statement this week, he said, quote, "I'm overjoyed that Kayla is home safe. I want to thank the City of Elgin, Illinois Police and Fire Departments, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and all of the law enforcement agencies who assisted with her case. We ask for privacy as we get to know each other again and navigate this new beginning." Authorities in San Juan County, New Mexico say that they are investigating the aftermath of a devastating tragedy this week after 4 people were killed, including the gunman, when an 18-year-old high school student went on a shooting spree in his neighborhood. The incident reportedly began just before 11 a.m. on Monday when the gunman, later identified as 18-year-old Bo Wilson, began shooting a rifle indiscriminately outside of his house in the city of Farmington. He was dressed all in black and wearing a bulletproof vest. After firing more than 140 rounds, Wilson reportedly ditched his rifle and began walking down Dustin Avenue. Armed with 2 handguns, he continued the attack, firing at houses, passing vehicles, and random civilians. According to reports, the terrifying assault lasted for roughly 8 minutes, during which time the 18-year-old killed 3 people and injured at least 6 others. Among those wounded were 2 police officers responding to the scene. Wilson allegedly refused to stand down after being confronted by officers, instead apparently shouting at them to kill him while continuing to fire. He was eventually shot and died of his injuries. The 3 deceased victims of the attack have since been identified as 3 elderly women: 79-year-old Shirley Voida, 73-year-old Melody Ivy, and her 98-year-old mother, Gwendolyn Schofield. All 3 of the victims were reportedly attacked while driving in their vehicles, with Shirley shot first and Melody and Gwendolyn shot as they tried to come to her aid. At the time of this recording, a motive behind the crime is still being investigated. The attack apparently took place the day before Wilson was supposed to graduate from his local high school, though there are also unconfirmed reports that undisclosed mental health issues may have played a role. A cryptic note was found on Wilson's person after he was shot that reportedly said, quote, "If you're reading this, I'm the end of the chapter," though authorities are still looking into what this might mean. The situation is still developing. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.